Welcome, one and all, to Men with Funny Heads, a sci-fi podcast that has now overtaken the Shutterstock page for big head funny men idea images as the top search result for Men with Funny Heads. I am Wib, and I am joined by Longfang. Hello, Longfang.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for that intro. If that was off the cuff, good work.
I don't totally write down my intro joke beforehand.
Good.
It's totally off the cuff. I am funny. I'm funny.
You are funny.
Okay, complimenting me now. I don't know how to deal with that. I'm going to move on. How are you?
I am not bad. It's a lovely Sunday, isn't it? I don't know.
It is definitely a Sunday.
Okay,
it is varying between being slightly too cold and slightly too warm.
It's fucking great, isn't it?
But I think that might just be because I'm in my 30s and I will find a way to complain whatever the temperature.
You're also English. Doesn't help.
Yes, I am a serial complainer in that regard. I cannot help it. One day I'll get better from being English.
And how are you?
I am okay. I am okay. I watched Star Trek the animated series, an episode of it, so, that's a thing I have to deal with in my life.
Yep. Now, to be fair, you have done a video on your side channel about the animated series before.
I have, yes. I was going to mention that at some point. Spoilers, by the way, but we're doing an episode on a episode of Star Trek the animated series. I've previously covered an episode called The Magics of Megas 2 on my Wib Does Stuff YouTube channel, which is an episode in which the Enterprise goes to, a parallel dimension and then, fucking meets the devil.
Yep.
Because if you've not watched it before, the Star Trek animated series is a little bit weird. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you what, let's get into it.
Yeah.
So, the episode we are covering is called The Infinite Vulcan. It is episode 7 of season 1, and it aired on the 20th of October in 1973. Now,
73, okay.
Yeah, it was a few years afterwards, because originally, Star Trek the Animated Series was envisioned as a spin-off of the main show that would be running at the same time, and it was going to be on another ship called the Excalibur.
Okay.
But this didn't really happen because at the time there was a lot of tension between Gene Roddenberry and Paramount, and it didn't really come about. Mm-hmm. However, one piece of information I do know about it is that it was going to contain a Vulcan called Steve, which is the best.
Love it.
Eventually a deal was kind of reached, but it was, a bit afterwards, and so it became an extension of the original series. So, Star Trek the Animated Series, which, if I remember correctly, that is a retroactive name applied to it. It was just called Star Trek at the time.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Was animated by Filmation, who you might know from doing stuff like He-Man and She-Ra.
It shows.
It shows. This is... I think to say that this is worse quality animation than He-Man does not really cover exactly how lazy it is sometimes.
Yeah, oh boy, yeah.
It does what it needs to, but it doesn't do anything more than that.
This is... How do I put this? This is if you don't have the budget for the lowest budget of Hanna-Barbera.
It's one step above that thing where they just have someone's mouth superimposed onto the thing. Was it Clutch Cargo, the series that did that?
I am not sure.
I can't remember now. Let me know in the comments if I got that right or not. It's been a long time since I've thought about it. Anyway, it was done by them, so it's pretty cheap. The full cast, nearly, returns to voice their characters.
In varying levels of quality.
Not all of them are voice actors. Now, originally, it was just going to be William Shatner, James Doohan, Leonard Nimoy, and McCoy's
DeForest Kelly.
DeForest Kelly, his name fell out of my head then. Oh, and Majel Barrett were going to be the only people who were going to come back. But Leonard Nimoy basically said, if you don't get on Nichelle Nichols and George Takei, since it's the space future where, you know, we're not awful racist pieces of shit. If you don't get the two minority actors back on the show, then I'm not fucking doing it. So they came on, but unfortunately, money ran out to the point at which Walter Koenig would be in the show. So Chekhov is not in the show.
Oh man, Walter Koenig. I love that guy, but he always got the short end of the fucking stick.
I mean, he was hired to play in the last season of... actually, was it season 2 or season 3 he appears? I always forget.
I can't... Season 2, maybe?
Well, because he was the last of the main cast to appear, and he was playing a comedy Russian, and, you know, I can understand why they would maybe not spring for that, but... it meant that he wasn't in it, and he was kind of bitter about it.
He did write this episode, though, apparently.
He did write this episode, which I'll get to. Mm-hmm. He was replaced by a 3-armed alien called Arix in the show, who is in the episode we're going to talk about, but he doesn't say anything.
Yeah.
He was voiced by James Doohan, because basically any time there is a male character on screen who is not part of the main cast, it's voiced by James Doohan. And any time I think Majel Barrett does basically the voices of every woman in the show.
Yeah, I think that's about right.
It's got a pretty small cast. Mm-hmm. Now, the episode we're covering, The Infinite Vulcan, was written by Walter Koenig. He has gone on record stating that he thinks the episode is okay.
Good.
that is a quote.
I love that, man.
It is okay. Apparently, the whole process of it, of getting hired to do it, going through the whole rewrites process, which I'll talk a bit more later about, was apparently a fucking nightmare. And I read a few interviews with him talking about it, and he doesn't. It seems to be a bit of a sore spot for him. He's kind of grateful of it because it was the first bit of writing that he did and got published. You know, as well, you know, or what's the word? Produced, I guess.
I know
in
what
this.
you mean.
It's his first bit of writing, so he's grateful for it, but it's not a fond memory.
That's a fucking shame.
But yeah, so do you have anything else to say about the general Star Trek animated series before we get into it?
Not really, no. It's something I have vague memories of seeing when I was a kid, and I think it must have played on TV at some point in the early to mid-90s for some reason, but other than that...
I never watched it at the time. Well, I couldn't have watched it at the time. I wasn't alive, but I never saw it before, like, a couple of years ago, when I watched through, like, the entirety of Star Trek in, like, a year. Like, every series. And so... I have a very non-nostalgic kind of approach to it.
Yeah. Like, when I say I have vague memories of it, it's like... I remember the animations and the uniforms, and that was about it, sort of thing. Like, the colours are still in my head, but that's because I was, like, fucking 4 at the time, you know?
And colours were just all you really remember.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I meant to mention the other character that sort of replaces Chekhov is a cat girl called Maress, who isn't in this episode, I'm afraid. And if you search for her on Google, you get a lot of very interesting images. One thing, because I think I mentioned it. I've mentioned it in. I think it might have been a Misanthropod episode talking about I've not seen the Lower Decks yet, which is the new Star Trek animated series. That has a Katen, I think they're called.
Katen or Cation or something like that, yeah.
Which are the cat people.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to see them kind of coming back. Although apparently there are some of these cat people. They are in the reboot Star Trek, but you wouldn't know it's supposed to be them to look at them because...
Oh, god damn it.
You know, the reboot Star Trek movies have one good movie.
1.5 good movies.
The first one's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all right.
Beyond is good.
And we don't... The 2 movies they made, some people say that they made 3, but I don't know.
It seems more like 2 movies and one person's 9/11 conspiracy video on YouTube.
Oh man, we should do an episode on Into Darkness.
No, No. Maybe
God,
one day.
I'll see if that movie still has the capacity to make me mad.
It will. Trust me, it will.
Anyway, let's get into this actual episode, which is much better than Star Trek Into Darkness,
Yes.
which is the lowest barrier to entry I have ever established.
I don't know, man. Code of Honor exists, and that's still a pretty low bar as well.
Yeah. At least Code of Honor's shorter than Into Darkness.
Okay, fair. There's less suffering involved over
Yeah.
time, but it still has you suffer. Okay, let's not think about it.
Let's not think about it. Okay, so Star Trek the Animated Series, it opens with a sort of recreation of the original series intro, but in animated form, which, considering the animation for the rest of the show, some bits of it are animated quite well, some not so great.
Yes.
And it has a completely new theme, which is interesting.
And it's not good.
I'm fine with it. I don't have strong feelings about it.
No, it's one of those ones where it's like, I would have just went with the real theme and not this, but okay.
Well, isn't there some weird rights issues to do with
Fucking
that?
probably.
Because,
Star Trek has a lot of weird rights issues.
wasn't it because like Gene Roddenberry wrote lyrics for it so that he could then claim to have some ownership over it?
Oh, that's a fucking carny-ass move. Good work, Mr. Roddenberry.
And obviously it wasn't used.
Yeah,
like as
thankfully.
the thing of the show, but yeah, there are lyrics to it.
I need
which
to look
I
those
think
up because I'm sure they're terrible.
I think the official version is recorded. I think Nichelle Nichols sings it actually.
Oh, nice. That's cool.
I may be speaking out of my arse here. I'm going to get back to the things I know that are definitely true. So, the episode starts with a captain's log, as these things are wont to do, with the Enterprise studying a planet on the edge of the galaxy. Kirk, Spock, Sulu, and McCoy are down on this planet, which is like this kind of big green rolling hills and an alien city on the horizon, which is seemingly abandoned. Yeah. They're unable to make any sense of any kind of life readings that they're getting on their like tricorders and stuff, but they are getting a power reading from a nearby building. Unfortunately, what they're not using here is they're not using the spacesuits that they have in the animated series. Because
I haven't seen those.
Oh, okay. They're a retreat. So this is an M-class planet, presumably. Actually, I don't think I think M-class as a designation. I think that doesn't. Did that come in the original series? Or was that later?
I don't think it did.
I think that might have been a TNG
that's a
thing.
TNG thing. Yeah.
That sounds too much like someone
like
who
a legit
is trying to, someone who's trying to make it a functional world was thinking about it. Anyway, they're on this planet. They can breathe on it, so it's not a big deal. Normally, when they go to a place where they can't breathe, they have these like force field like suits, presumably because they didn't want to have to make a bunch of new stock animations.
Yeah.
And it makes a white glow appear around the character. They just have like a fancy belt on.
Oh.
But because the show's not very well animated, quite often this glow is offset slightly, so it's half on, half off the character.
Good.
Because it's not well animated. Yeah. Sulu detects some life, well, something, which turns out to be this tiny little fluffy pink ball plant on legs thing.
Spider plant.
That kind of... A spider plant that kind of pops up out and like its roots are like legs and then walks along and then buries itself back into the ground. Mm-hmm. Sulu says that he thinks it likes him. And then Kirk delivers a line where he goes, "We always encourage our officers to make friends with the natives, but because this show uses a lot of like stock animation.
Yeah.
When they're talking, it's just like close-ups on their face and it's like just a stock kind of pose and everything. Mm-hmm. He says it like while staring off into the mid-distance in this kind of like, what is he remembering? Like,
because it looks like it traumatized him.
It looks like something has traumatized him and he's making a very dark joke about something that happened on a previous away mission, and I'm not sure I want to think about it. Maybe he's thinking back to that time that he fought Gorn. I don't know.
Maybe.
Anyway, Spock picks up that there is a probe and that they're being scanned. So they enter one of the nearby buildings while Sulu stays behind and interferes with the plant, which then pricks him on the finger.
Yeah, I did actually literally, like, just writing my notes there immediately when we did it. What the fuck? Don't just pick up an alien plant. You jackass.
Because they could be poisonous. They could hurt you. It could have a mouth. It might be carnivorous. You don't know.
It could just be a dick.
It could be you're picking it up by the dick, and
Yeah.
it's not happy.
Imagine
about
how
that.
fucking uncomfortable that is for everyone.
Yeah, no one wants that. Inside the building, there's a variety of sci-fi devices.
This is actually, I had this noted after I saw the interior shots and the exterior shots as well to an extent. The good thing about animation is you can do stuff that you couldn't budget for in live action.
100%, and they did do that a lot in the animated series. I mean, hell, the holodeck as an entity is like appears in one of these episodes. Of the animated series. I think it's just called like the Rec Room, but it's functionally the holodeck.
Which is something wow, I'm trying to imagine them doing that and like on the original series, and oh man, yeah, that, yeah, no.
But yeah, they kind of work out that all the devices in this room are to defend and protect the city. McCoy then picks up a humanoid reading of incredible strength, but before they can worry about what that means, they hear Sulu go, "Ah!" And they go outside, where they find him unconscious and poisoned because, well, he picked up the pink thing by its dick, as we've established. No one looks too concerned by this, but again, that's because of the overuse of stock animation, so they can't really have people emote too much.
You remember, I mentioned at the start about Hanna-Barbera, this is very much the Scooby-Doo school of things, where it's like, okay, how was it they used to do it? The outfits and the body of the character was one part of a cell, and then the head, they just plopped something on. Each time they needed to change it's that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's a lot of, it's very quickly and cheaply done.
Yes.
I won't harp on this the whole thing. I was just bringing that up there because it's just kind of funny. Like, oh, Sulu's dying, but everyone's got this kind of like their voices are upset,
but their faces are very nonplussed,
completely placid. Like it works for Spock because he's always like that anyway. But for everyone else, it's a bit, it's a bit weird. But they're like, oh, he's poisoned. We don't know what's going to work. McCoy injects him with something, and he's like, I don't know if it'll work. It probably won't. But then a group of aliens appear, and I would like you to attempt to describe what these aliens look like, Longfang.
Oh, it's the Elder Things from the Mountains of Madness.
That's a much more succinct description that I wrote down. My description was upside down, hairy green strawberries for heads with jellyfish bodies and plant legs.
Yeah. But as soon as I saw them, I just thought Mountains of Madness. The things that are in the ice.
That is, you 100%. They are affronted by a Lovecraftian abomination. Or several of them, in fact. Yeah. All wearing this fancy necklace. It's very stylish.
Yes.
The lead alien, Agmar, who is voiced by James Doohan because
of course
he's a male character in Star Trek animated series who isn't the main cast. And Agmar offers to help. Agmar then injects, I think, Sulu with an antidote.
No.
Much to McCoy's protests.
First of all, DeForest Kelly is a treasure because he literally gives the plant person shit for the, how do they put it, the dewdrop antidote that he's got in his hand. Like, literal bit of, water on a piece of grass, effectively, like a dew.
Yeah.
I don't think it was injected as much as it was just placed in the skin and allowed to, like, absorb, because plants...
It's not clear.
And it also doesn't matter, but I'm pointing it out because it's fun.
Yes. At this time, Spock, using his tricorder, because he's just been scanning these people rudely whilst they're standing there, is like, oh, these are like plant-based.
Yeah. Is there tricorder etiquette? Because I was just thinking about it there, and it's kind of invasive or rude to do that in front of someone.
Yeah, if someone did it to me, I think I'd be pretty pissed if someone said, this is a carbon-based life form. I'm like, I could have fucking told you that. You could have just asked. You didn't have to scan me. Like, what else? Do you want my inner leg measurement? What the fuck? Like, sure the tricorder gets that anyway, but...
Yeah.
Agmar reveals that this is the planet of Phylos, and they have been tracking them since they arrived, but didn't want to reveal themselves because they fear aliens. We're also told that the little pink plant thing is called a Retlaw plant, which you might notice is Walter backwards, because it's written by Walter Koenig.
Didn't notice that, even in the subtitles. Good job.
Sulu wakes up, and the crew are all impressed by the speed of the Philosians' medical technology. They ask, how did you know that this would work on humans? And Agmar says that humanoids have been there before, and that their necklaces are called Vodas, and they're basically like a universal translator for them.
Yes.
Agmar takes them to see the rest of their people, but what he actually means by that is he's going to take them to a room full of dead people.
That look fucking awesome.
Yeah, they're like these towering, like 30 feet tall versions of these Lovecraftian horrors, but they're like atrophied and dead. Like they're dead plants. They look like something out of Bloodborne.
Yes. If you made them sort of bluish grey, they'd just be amygdalas.
Yeah. Basically, it's like, they're dead. Spock scans them, and he says, "Oh, these seem like very very fancy life forms. They would use almost 70% of their brains, a very high ratio." Which, of course, as I hope we all know by now,
is bollocks.
We use basically all of our brains all the time. The whole "you only use 10% of your brain" is absolute nonsense, not based on anything in reality. So this is also nonsense, but it's also sci-fi from the 70s, so what do you expect?
Yeah.
They're like, "Oh, are these like, how old are this?" And it's like, "Oh, these are just the previous generation. They were all killed when a human came and brought his illnesses with him. But the human did help save them, and I think McCoy figures out it's Staphylococcus."
I do like the fact he actually straight up said, yes, that. Rather than just the human disease.
Which is, a kind of bacteria thing that we have just everywhere. And it does occasionally make us ill, but it's not a big deal. But this planet doesn't have it at all, so it just completely destroyed them.
Yeah.
At this point, a dragon appears.
Okay, we need to talk about this.
Okay, would you like me to give my description of the dragon that I wrote down?
Please, because I don't know how to fucking describe it.
A purple dragon with noodles for legs and no butt.
Yeah, you know what, fair enough. Actually, when we're talking about how cheap this is, it wouldn't surprise me, because the head's well detailed. I wonder if that was taken from something else. And then they had a very basic shape for the rest of the body.
Could be, I'm not sure.
They're weird looking.
They also yell like a bird, and I mean one bird one time, because they have like one audio file of a bird yelling. So it's just this endless squawk.
Yep.
This purple dragon with its noodly appendages comes down and attacks Kirk. They want to use their phasers, but then the aliens say, due to a weapon nullifying field, your phasers won't work. And a bunch more of these purple dragon things show up, and they hold everyone down with their noodles, presumably awakening something in at least one of the characters as they're tied up like that.
Yep.
And then they, they fly off with Spock, but leave the rest of them.
Mm-hmm.
Agmar apologizes, but he says, "But there's no other way. Spock has been taken for a much greater cause. Master has searched for many years to find a specimen like Spock." So, with a hand gesture, well, I guess hand gesture, it's more of a tentacle gesture, or root gesture, I suppose. Agmar, waves off the dragons. And it's like, everyone in the galaxy, shall have, peace and harmony because of what we're doing. Mm-hmm. Kirk runs up in a slightly janky bit of animation and grabs Agmar by what he presumes are his shoulders and demands to know where Spock has been taken.
Again, maybe it's just not polite to go around grabbing aliens before you know how their body is actually, what their anatomy is. Just saying.
Yeah, it's like shoulders are pretty neutral on us, but
That could just be their face. We don't know.
Yeah, it could be like grabbing a Ferengi by the ears, you know.
Oh, you never want to do that.
Um,
Ever.
where are we? Oh, yeah, at this point, rather than answer, Agmar and the rest of the aliens that are there, all in a variety of voices that sound like a bunch of the board staff members of the show, all start going, praise to the master, praise to the master. It's really weird because none of them sound like James Doohan, or it's weird. Like, I don't get what they were going for there at all.
Just don't worry about it.
It turns out what they're doing is they're greeting their master who has arrived, who it turns out is a very, very large man wearing a toga, as was the style at the time.
As was the style in the original series.
And when I say large, I mean like 30 feet tall.
Yeah. We don't mean like large as in like he's a big boy. No, he's fucking huge.
Yeah, he is a giant man, and so he introduces himself with, I am Dr. Stavros Caniculus 5. Welcome to Phylos, Captain Kirk. No one seems to be particularly phased by the literal titan of myth standing in front of them.
No, it's fine.
Kirk just asks, so where is Spock? Caniculus replies that he is mine, his essence is mine, return to your ship, which is always a great thing to hear.
Yep, definitely.
And, you must leave or suffer the consequences. The dragons are summoned again, who wiggle their noodles threateningly. And,
oh my god,
Kirk...
the fucking dragons, I can't get over them.
The dragon's great. I don't know. I'll tell you what, I would legit buy a plushie of those dragons if they existed.
Oh, mate, you know what, yeah.
Or possibly an action figure at least,
Yeah, an action figure would be great. Just a wee desk.
Yeah. They do get named later on. I can't remember what it is offhand.
Swoopers.
We'll find out when I... Swoopers, yes. There was apparently supposed to be other like alien monster things in this.
That makes sense because it does look like they've just copied and they literally copy and pasted the same thing. It would make sense if there was more than one sort of design.
I think they were supposed to be called like groaners or something. It was something that made it was a bit weird, and I was like, okay. When I read about it,
that would have been fun.
Yeah. But anyway, knowing that there's nothing they can do against these noodly foes, Kirk, calls up the Enterprise and says, beam us up, Scotty. Which is actually the only times in the entirety of Star Trek that the lines "beam us up, Scotty" are said is in this and a previous animated series episode called The Lorelei Signal. That's the closest it has ever been to saying "beam me up, Scotty." Because
it's really interesting, that isn't it? Because it's such an when you say Star Trek, that's one of the phrases that comes up with people,
and it's just literally not in it and never has been. But yeah, "beam me up, Scotty" is "beam us up, Scotty" is used twice, and both times in the animated series, and one was just there. So back on the ship, Uhura is searching for info on Caniculus. And Sulu is scanning the surface, unable to find Spock, although we do get... This is where, we get the canonical name for the noodle dragons as swoopers, which they can detect in abundance down on the planet.
Yes. I want to point out a few things here.
Yeah.
First of all, fucking hell, this show moves at a goddamn clip.
Well, I mean, the original series was like an hour long, and this is like 20-odd minutes long. Yeah, 25 minutes. So.
It's less than that probably because it's maybe 20 after the intro and outro. Yeah, it's fucking fast.
So they've got to get through a lot quite quickly.
Also, I don't care how not very well done it is. I still love the design of the original colony. The Constitution class is just a shit.
And because of its very kind of simple look, I think it translates... I mean, to be honest, the aesthetics of the original series translate well to animation.
Definitely, yeah.
Just because of it being much more simple. Like, you put like an LCARS system on like an animated series and it can look a bit messy quite quickly. Whereas like, just a big rank of buttons and things, it's like,
and shiny things and things making bloopy noises and everything. It's really nice. And the Connie and Uhura, I think, translated the best into animation.
I get that. So yeah, Kirk orders, as a way of trying to do something, that they shoot the building that had all that defense equipment with a phaser on stun, which I was actually trying to think about it, because it makes sense that a ship can do the stun feature of hand phasers. It kind of makes sense that would be a thing that would be available, but has that ever been done before? And what would it even do?
I'm not sure if it's been done before, but in terms of the way he says it, it sounds like it's a wide beam orbital bombardment of stun rays.
It's the gentle exterminators.
Yes. Indeed.
So yeah, he orders them to stun and hopefully deactivate the weapons nullification field, but it does bugger all, presumably because it's a weapons nullification field.
Yep.
So shooting it doesn't do much. So we find out that Scotty is working on some special equipment.
Indeed.
And McCoy is working on what you can kind of work out is like an old family weed killer recipe or something.
Yes, great grandpappy's weed killer.
Which of course he has.
I'm just going to take this moment to say that, man, I love DeForest Kelly.
He's great.
Such a good voice.
The amount at which he is, you can probably assume that I always have a great kinship with grumpy old bastard characters.
I mean, yeah, but if you talk about Star Trek and you want to have the grumpy old bastard, it's always DeForest Kelly.
Yeah,
he's so good at it.
He was just the best at it. Every grumpy old bastard has to be modelled off him, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Pulaski can fuck off. Anyway.
So yeah, they're obviously working on ways on things that they can do to rescue without just orbitally bombarding the planet.
Yep.
And Uhura finds some details on Caniclius in their computer. They find out that he's from the eugenics wars.
Do you remember how when we were talking about doing this podcast and you were saying, what do you want to do it on? I'm like, we could use something like light and cheery and not something we need to worry about too much or talk about too much. So we picked the animated series, and then the fucking eugenics wars comes up.
I think I did say, when we were talking about that, oh, well, at least, fascism won't come up this time.
It's like, nope, eugenics, fuck!
Okay, good. It's fine.
Also, I want to point out, pronunciation of name. Many members of the voice acting crew are saying Caniculus, and then other ones are saying Caniclius.
I mean, I would say it is. Let's just blame Walter Koenig, just for the sake of it, for having an unnecessarily complicated name.
Leave that man alone.
I mean, I'm not saying that I'm judging him for it. Just maybe if you're writing for a very cheap show that's going to be done very quickly, maybe call.
I have to imagine it's like a direction thing where they just weren't told what way to pronounce it, so they just went, fuck it.
Yeah, they weren't there on the same day, and they were like, oh, did we have Bill say it as Caniclius or
Caniculus? Yeah,
Caniculus. Yeah,
it's whatever.
Fine. So you find out, eugenics wars, which is about 250 years before the events of this, so that's a thing. And his plan was to clone the perfect being, but was ostracized for that because, when you're
too hardcore eugenicist for the eugenics wars, it kind of says something.
when the eugenics went in the eugenics wars, they're like, yeah, but there's a limit, mate.
Yeah. Khan's looking at him like, fucking hell.
They kind of mention there's a myth of a being roaming the galaxy looking for a perfect someone, which they sort of just drop and they don't really do anything more with. So I'm not sure why that line is in the show, but whatever.
It's fine.
I think it's just there to sort of say that Caniclius is sort of the idea of this person looking for this kind of ideal life form for their means is a thing, and that's sort of been a myth, and maybe that's where it comes from. They kind of logic out that he must have cloned himself repeatedly, which is why he's
5.
Yeah, why he's Caniclius 5, and why he's 30 feet tall. Although no one seems super concerned with the fact he's 30 feet tall.
I have to imagine it's just because it's a Starfleet thing when you're like, yeah, people can just be stupidly fucking tall sometimes. Again, this is something in animation I'd like to see where there's like members of Starfleet that are like 20 foot tall and it's just totally a casual thing and no one cares.
You want kind of a Monsters Inc. approach to things.
Kind of, yeah. Because, like, not to go off into hard a tangent here, something that never really gets touched in live action is, like, the fucking Horta from that one, like, original series episode are known to become Starfleet officers.
There is, like, it's something which, I mean, I guess you can sort of argue the reason why you don't really see it much is because of the whole, like, panspermia stuff of Star Trek, where when like the intelligent races are all kind of derived from the same like basic framework, which is presumably also why they can all interbreed and not just because of they just wanted to as writers.
Yeah, it very much feels that the episode is that a 2-parter in TNG that covers that.
I think so. I also realised that we've already been talking for way longer than the episode is.
Yeah, fuck it. Everyone knew this would happen if we talk about Star Trek.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how long this 20-odd minute episode lasts. Anyway.
Yeah. Oh, fuck.
So yes, ostracised for being too eugenicsy for the eugenics wars. He's a clone. Blah, 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 blah. So, with Scotty's mysterious new equipment, which is presumably full of McCoys, I'm going to assume it's just whiskey that's in there.
Yeah, it's like whiskey and like car battery acid, stuff like that.
It's like, one for you, one for me.
Yeah.
But so they go back down to back to the planet, and they find a hangar full of these overgrown, like retro-looking space rockets.
I love these designs; they are so of the time, and like, oh, it's great.
Very much so. They're being cleaned up by some of the aliens, making the crew wonder if this is for emigration or invasion. They speculate it's invasion because their tech is too good and they're racist.
Yep.
There's no sign of Spock or Caniculus, so Kirk grabs Agmar, who just happens to be there.
Fucking remembers the basics of CQC and grabs the motherfucker in a headlock.
I'm not even sure I hope is his head. He just kind of like waltzes up behind him and is just yoink.
No, he gets the arm around the head and shit. It's like, okay, Kirk, okay. That's more fighting skills than you've shown in the entirety of the original series, okay.
And he demands to know where Spock is. Agmar's like, oh, well, Spock is an amazing specimen, and, now he can carry on their work. The Philosians are a dying people. They are a frail remnant of their kind, and they're unable to reproduce. They're the last ones left. And then they're like, well, take us to where Spock is, and he's like, okay, sure.
So, I love that. It's like, we'll just take us to see Spock. Oh, yeah, sure, no problem. It's like, okay. Did we even have to grab one of these fuckers in what I assume was a headlock and not like a fucking shin hold because of how their bodies work?
I mean, I guess he thought that was the safest place to grab, because it's like, anywhere else and I don't know what the rules are. I imagine, we've all watched the original series. Kirk probably gets a lot of complaints from HR as
is. Please don't do this now.
So they go onto this little moving platform that it's like an elevator that goes down and then goes across. So it's not really an elevator. It's an elevator in the same way that Willy Wonka's great glass elevator is an elevator.
Or the turbo lift is a turbo lift.
Yeah.
Because that moves sideways too.
Yeah. Did you ever... How much of Star Trek Discovery did you ever watch?
None.
Okay. The show's got problems, especially in its first season, but one of the things that I never understood was it has this habit of showing turbo lifts, like how they move inside the ship, and it makes it look like
you don't have
too
to
much.
Do that ever.
And it makes it look more like magic. It makes it look like Harry Potter bullshit, and I don't know why they did it.
Like, they showed turbo lifts in what? one of the newer Star Trek movies, and it was still an elevator shaft. It's like, okay, you know what? Oh no, it wasn't a shaft. It was like tunnely type rail things, and it was fine.
Yeah.
You don't have to go nuts with it. We don't even need to see it. They're in a lift. That's all that matters.
Yeah. But anyway, they go down on this like platform, and then it starts going across, going sideways, and then the lights suddenly go out, and the swoopers attack with their one sound effect.
It's totally not irritating sound effect.
It's totally not irritating. You don't, quite, subtly just turn your volume down whilst this is happening. Their torches don't work because this whole place is full of like anti-technology fields and shit. Yep. So, and I think Agmar just kind of like carefully like steps to the left out of shot at this point.
For sure, yeah.
No one has to deal with it.
No one has to animate him.
And so they break out into a run. And they see a lit doorway, and they stumble into a lab, which turns out to be the one that Spock is in, and he's all hooked up to a sci-fi doohickey, and he's near death. Caniclius appears to say that he's going to die, but he shall live on just like Caniculus I lives on in his clones. Behold, gentlemen, the dawning of a new era, the salvation of the galaxy, Spock 2. There's a 30-foot Spock, mate.
It's a 30-foot Spock that they managed to copy the exact Starfleet uniform for.
He's just wearing his uniform. He's just 30 feet tall. He's just there.
Like, I want to know what else they did to this Spock 2 other than just make him big.
They made him big. That's why he's like the perfect life form, because he's big.
You know what? I think Caniclius was kicked out because his idea of eugenics was make things bigger.
I've made the perfect life form. What is it? It's a bloke, but he's 10 foot tall. Like, not sure how this helps us, mate. Yeah, honestly, this, because I didn't remember anything about the episode. Like when I suggested doing this one, other than I remembered Spock 2. That's all I remembered, and I was like, no, I have to. He's just big.
That's it. He's just big. He doesn't have the genes of a Klingon, like, splice. No, he's just big.
He's just big. But before anyone can really react to it, and let's be frank, no one's going to react to it.
Yeah.
The swoopers catch up, and so the team all mask up like good, responsible people in 2020.
Including McCoy masking up the actual Spock on the bed.
Yeah. And then they pull out their weed killer guns, which
are adorable. Shut up.
Which are adorable. And so they have a field that stops weapons and torches working.
Mm-hmm.
But weed killer guns are an exception.
Yeah.
And I want to know how all of this technology, like this technology dampener thing works.
Because it's not like electronic technology. I think it's literally just like a hand pump fucking weed killer.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Like a spray gun. Yeah, that's all it is.
Now I don't have to think about it. And yes, it's full of weed killer, so they spray it, and it fills up the whole room full of gas. So, like, Spock 2 and Caniclius are like, oh, fuck off, and just leave.
Hey, fucking
and the swoopers fall to the ground and kind of moan a bit. I'm not sure if they're just incapacitated
or they're dying slowly.
Yeah.
They're dying in incredible agony.
Yeah, dying in a slow, oozing death as their organs liquefy, I think is what's happening.
And their little arms disintegrate.
I need to make you watch the kaiju film Yongari at some point.
I think I've watched it.
Which one?
Yeah, I've watched it. Both, actually.
Oh, okay, because the 60s one's kind of fun, and there's one made in like 2001 that is one of the worst movies.
Oh, it's terrible.
So,
it's been a while since I've watched it, so I barely remember it, but the bit I remember about the original Yongari was the fucking tickle ray.
Yeah, that's Yongari, yeah. It's a South Korean kaiju movie, if you're not familiar at home.
Also known as Young Gary.
Yes. And yeah, the whole point is that at the end of it, they basically pour like poison on him, and then he dies a death where he shits out blood.
Good. I forgot about that. Good. Yep.
It's a weirdly dark ending to a very goofy film. And that's presumably what's happening to the swoopers because, they don't consider them to be a valid life form, I guess.
Oh, fucking hell.
Anyway, so they try and figure out how to free Spock and get him out. And they're like, wow, okay, his mind is just gone and he's going to be dead in minutes. Kirk tries to call the end. Sorry?
I do have a thing here. Just to note, oh no, something's happened to Spock's brain.
Well, you know, it's a thing. It happens from time to time.
I had to get that reference in there. I'm sorry, I'm terrible.
Yeah, Spock's brain isn't great.
Nope.
It's not a very good episode. It's from the dark times of season 3 where season 3 of the original series is not great.
No, I'm trying to think of a good episode in there and I can't right now.
Most of the worst episodes of TOS come from that 3rd season. They're just a bit like, eh.
Yeah, they really do, actually.
There are a couple of decent ones, but like most of them are a bit eh.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so Kirk tries to call the Enterprise, but the walls are too thick and no transmission can get out.
It's not the anti-technology field.
No, it's just the walls are too thick. It's fine. Caniclius returns, saying that Spock's mind was transferred into the clone because he can like transfer over like minds, but he can't duplicate them for reasons.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, and because he's basically like, it's fine. Like Spock's gonna live on in giant Spock.
Ginormal Spock.
Kirk gets mad at him, saying, you talk about creating life, but you have to murder to do it, which has a weird dramatic sting then on Caniclius, like he's delivered a zinger, but he's just pointed out the obvious.
Like it's a thing that Caniclius has never thought about before, which, if he hasn't, holy shit, you dumbass.
I don't know, I think Caniclius is not the smartest genius.
No, you may be right. You may be right.
He picks up Kirk just bodily picks up Spock and they make for the exit, but are then blocked by Spock 2.
Keep that in mind, everyone, that Kirk picks up original Spock's body. Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spock 2 initially ignores Kirk's order to get out the way. McCoy kind of speculating that he's still probably processing the information he's been fed, because so far Spock 2 hasn't spoken or said anything. He's done the closest thing to emoting that I've seen a character do
in this episode. Which is weird because it's fucking Spock.
Yeah. We cut back to the ship where Scotty tells Uhura to basically transfer all the power to the communications to get through to the captain, even if it burns through all of their dilithium crystals, which seems irresponsible.
Don't think about it.
No, we must get through to the captain, because if we can't get through, even if we have to strand ourselves on the edge of the galaxy, that's fine.
It's fine.
Because we'll.
Another ship will pick us up eventually.
Eventually.
It's
not like space is big.
No.
The galaxy's notorious for being quite a small place. That's why they never made a Star Trek series based entirely around the premise that even when you have light speed, it would take decades to get from one side to the other.
Yeah, it would take like 70 fucking years.
And several times faster than the speed of light. Not just light speed. At light speed, it would be insurmountable. For a human to go from one side to the other, you have to be several times the speed of light.
Hey, do you ever think that Voyager should have just done the thing where they went into warp for 70 odd years? And had a generational crew, and then it would have been fine.
Well, technically they would have got back a lot later.
Yeah, but they also would have got back without all of the issues.
Logically, yes. But also it wouldn't have made a good show.
Neither did Voyager. Hey!
Hey, come on, there's 8 good episodes of Voyager.
I had to say it. I'm sorry. I know people like Voyager. I'm not a huge fan of it. I just had to get that zinger in. I'm so sorry.
Legit, I have a lot of nostalgia for Voyager, even if I have a lot of problems with it as a show. I fucking love, Scorpion. I always forget the name of it, but the one where it's the Hirogen two-parter where they're on the holodeck. I fucking love that one. What I don't love is an episode that we nearly did today, which is we nearly did an episode on Threshold, which is not a good episode of Voyager.
No. There's a reason I decided on fucking the animated series instead.
Anyway, Back on the planet, McCoy intuits somehow that Spock too is starting to come to his senses. So Kirk tries to reason with him, saying, having Spock die, Spock is against meaningless death, so why kill the original Spock just to make a big one?
Mm-hmm.
Caniculus says that
I'm really glad that Kirk literally points out how dumb the cloning but bigger is.
Yeah. Caniculus says, oh, it's not needless because he's the first of a master race, which is a red flag.
Yeah. Yup.
However, Scotty's plan to use up all of their fuel works, and Kirk's communicator does go off. Which he then passes to Spock too. Basically says, you answer it. And it looks comedically small in his hand.
Okay, I love the fact that there's just a tiny communicator, though. It's so cute.
He answers it, and he doesn't have like a deep booming voice. He's just Spock.
Yep, literally just Spock.
It would have been fun if you had a deep booming voice and Uhura would be like,
Are you okay, Mr. Spock? No. It's just his voice.
This is how I always sound.
Yeah.
Anyway, he answers it, and Uhura basically says, okay, we found out more information about Caniculus. His later writings state that he wanted to use his master race as a peacekeeping force throughout the galaxy.
There's another red flag for you.
I mean, he basically wanted to be the emperor of mankind, be big, make clone army of giant people. Like,
Fuck, you're not even wrong. Shit.
Uhura then signs off to stop them from burning through all of their fuel. And you do kind of go, so the emergency information they had to broadcast was that Caniculus wanted to make big people. And we kind of know that.
As a peacekeeping force.
Yeah, but like the fact that he's doing it to like, it's been stated that he was doing it to bring peace to the galaxy, like...
I just don't worry about it.
It didn't seem like it was information worth what they would do, worth like potentially stranding. However, I can't remember how many hundreds of people are on board the original Enterprise.
It fluctuates if memory serves.
And it's more than it should be.
Yeah.
Like it's even stated
never think about it. It's not.
It's even stated in the DS9 episode where they go on to where they go
oh yeah, they really used to cram them in or something like that.
Yeah. I think it gets mentioned in a Voyager episode as well, where they're talking about like the old era, and when Warp 5 was really fast.
Yeah. Apparently, according to the good folks at Memory Alpha, the 2250s version of the Connie has a crew complement of 203 spread across 22 decks. And the 2260s version is 430 crew across 22 decks. There's you
Too
go.
many people.
Yes.
Anyway, so he wants to use his master race, blah, blah, blah. Kirk just says... Caniculus, this is a waste of time. There has been peace in the Federation for over 100 years.
This is my favourite fucking bit, is that this motherfucker is so smart and has never kept up with current events.
Yeah, he didn't think to, like, check the internet, like, to go, oh, shit. I mean, I can't log on to fucking Twitter without it telling me of all of the bad things or good things happening in the world, whether I want to or not. So you're going to find out. Although I would point out that it's like, oh, yeah, we've been at peace for over 100 years. And you go, you should probably don't look at the canon. Never look at the canon.
No, don't think about the neutral zones or anything like that. It's fine. It's fine.
Don't think about Wars of the Romulans. Don't think about Wars of the Klingons. Don't think, or the Cold War they had going with the Klingons. Don't think
about the Gorn.
Yeah,
I think they had quite a few border skirmishes with.
I mean, if you want to talk about a massive full scale war, I guess not. But I'm whatever.
There's a lot of there's tensions or the Tholians. Yeah. Like, come on.
It's almost like this was an animated series made for children.
Actually, on that note, though, when Kirk is speaking to Big Spock to try and make Big Spock see reason and not be a dick, he brings up the Idic.
We'll get to that in a second, because that's a bit later on.
Oh, damn it. My notes are shit for this, sorry.
No, it's just because they, Caniclius basically says, well, you're lying. What about the eugenics wars? The Romulans, the Klingons, the Kzinti. The Kzinti are a race of giant cat people who exist in the animated series. They were in a few earlier things. They're like slavers. Not to be confused with the Zindi, who are
I was
from
like,
Enterprise.
Wait, the Zindi? Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's the Kzinti.
Kzinti. Fuck off with that.
And anyway, so I need a giant army of Spocks to subdue all of those. And Kirk is like, how do you know I'm lying? It's been 200 years since you fucking checked anything. And Agmar reveals that, they were so down for this plan because they were planning to do the same thing anyway. So all that kind of assumption that, like, the crew made earlier, that these guys were just going to, like, impose their dictatorial will on everybody.
Completely
they did,
correct.
Yeah. So basically, their racism has been rewarded. Make of that what you will.
Don't worry about it. Also, they mention imposing peace.
Yes, imposing peace, which is a very important. That is an important word. Because that's the difference between merely being a peacekeeping force and being bastards.
Yep.
So, Spock 1 at this point is nearly dead, and at this point, yes, Kirk reminds Spock 2 of the Vulcan symbol IDIC, which means infinite diversity in infinite combinations, which represents the sort of elements that create truth and beauty, sort of a Vulcan kind of concept.
Mm-hmm. And it's Kirk a concept I really like.
Yeah, it's interesting. And Kirk asks, would an army of Spocks imposing peace, like, would that army of Spocks be able to defy the IDIC concept? Because that's what they'd be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And Spock 2 accepts, you know what? They wouldn't be able to, no. So Kirk once again asks to reverse the effect. And Agmar chooses at this point to attack because he doesn't want their dream to die. And he attacks Sulu, who just kind of throws him to one side. Really,
he gives him like one of the proper fucking body throws. It's pretty good. And it's like, again, is like the best fighting I've seen in anything related to TOS.
It's kind of funny because he just so easily just dispatches him, and he has a plan, I guess. And it's possible he's dead because he doesn't say anything or appear in the rest of the episode.
It's fine. Don't worry about it.
I think Sulu threw him against the ground so hard it caved his plant skull in. It just
snapped his entire little plant body. Oh, God.
Caniclius then smashes the machine around Spock.
He's back in the bed, by the way.
Yeah, the machine that he was taken out of like 5 minutes ago. He's back in it now.
Don't worry about it.
Continuity be damned. Because he basically wants to stop them from transferring the mind back. Because he's like, no, my dream shit,
Mm-hmm.
So Spock 2 does a mind meld on Spock 1, and it looks hilarious because it's
just the index finger.
He just puts his index finger on his forehead, and the scale looks so weird because it like does a far out shot where you've got like giant Spock poking mini Spock in the head whilst giant Canicula stands in the background, and you've got the regular sized crew sort of standing in the foreground just like, huh.
The perspectives are all sorts of fucked up in this episode.
It's weird. I think at this point, like, Sulu refers to it as like, oh, it's the Vulcan mind touch rather than mind meld.
Yeah, I noticed that.
And so, yeah, Spock 2 does the whole, my mind to your mind thing. Mm-hmm. If you're not aware for some reason, I don't know why you'd be listening to something about the Star Trek animated series if you don't know about Star Trek, but Vulcans can join with people's minds. Yeah, telepathic link with people.
Yeah.
To be fair, it has always been, it does whatever the writers need it to do at the time.
Oh, for sure. This comes up all like in a big way in the movies.
Oh yeah, actually, in a way, what happens here is kind of a little similar.
You know what? Yeah, you're right.
So yeah, he basically transfers a copy of his mind back into Spock 1, who wakes up and says, "I am pleasantly surprised at your capacity for deductive reasoning, Captain. When you're not being bellicose, there appears to be no end to your arsenal of formidable talents."
Because I miss Leonard Nimoy's voice. I'm just going to say that now.
Always the verbose motherfucker. No, it's great. So yeah, we've now got 2 Spocks. This is something that Caniclius didn't think of because he... Well, I guess you could argue that he got out into the universe before the No, wait. No, the eugenics occurred before First Contact, so...
Yes. Was the Eugenic Wars World War III? That's the question.
Okay, you know what? I'm not going to let this stand. Let's see what the internet says.
Oh,
because that's the problem. Because they've had to move around dates and things.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Because the Eugenics Wars was in, like, what, the 20th century? Actually, the 90s was the Eugenic Wars.
Eugenics Wars was between 1992 and 1996. There we go.
Yeah.
Because I knew it was around them, but I was like, I'm sure, but I know they've moved like some dates around that because it was getting awkward. So they were like, maybe we should move around. But yeah, no, it is. So he left before First Contact, so he doesn't know what a Vulcan is. So we can.
But he does know what the Romulans are, and the Kazinti.
This really does start to fall apart the moment you think about it, doesn't it? Yeah, Spock 2 says not to worry because they can both be Spock, it's fine. However, there will be no army. Caniclius is kind of just, in that moment, he's kind of just accepted that his work is not necessary. He just had to smash something, I guess, before it would, like, sink in. But he just doesn't know
he had to have a hissy fit before he, like, took a second to remember what's going on.
Yeah, I think so. And he just doesn't really know what he's going to do with himself. Spock 1 suggests that Caniclius and Spock 2 should stay here to work on rejuvenating the Philosian people. Spock 2 and Caniclius agree to it. They're like, oh, this seems like good, and it means that we can go off onto this planet on the edge of the universe and no one has to think about this ever again. Mm-hmm. The Spocks live long and prosper to each other, and then we get a little goof at the end of the episode where Kirk asks Sulu to show him how to do the body throw that he did earlier.
I hate this goof. It's terrible.
The body throw that murdered Agmar, like. And Sulu's like, I don't know, sir. It isn't just physical. You have to be inscrutable. And Kirk responds, inscrutable, Sulu. You're the most scrutable man I know. And then Sulu winks, and everyone laughs.
The fuck that's even meant to mean? Okay, we're done. Fucking hell.
I think Kirk may have slut-shamed him just then, but I don't understand how.
It's fucking weird, man.
Because I'm not sure what... I mean, maybe this is one of those things where inscrutable was used more specifically back then.
I don't know.
Because it just means it's someone who can't be known.
It's a don't think about it one.
But anyway, that is the end of the episode. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so do you want my my fun facts about the episode now?
Please, yeah.
So, I don't have many because it is just a random episode of an animated series.
Yeah.
But the process of writing this episode was apparently a right pain in the arse for Walter Koenig, who, because he was kind of bitter about not being asked on the show, and he kind of got, it kind of got put forward that he, maybe try writing for it, and so he kind of submitted the idea. And he got a lot of feedback from Roddenberry, who was like keep wanting to tweak things and like, oh, make the aliens plants because we can do that because it's animated. So he kept adding in weird shit, and apparently it was very annoying. Koenig actually auditioned to play Caniclius, but during the cast, like the audition, he was like, "Yeah, I knew they weren't going to cast me."
Oh my god.
And so
that's really sad.
Yeah, it was kind of depressing, and he didn't write any more episodes of the show, even though he was asked, because he was just kind of upset over the whole thing.
It reminds me a lot of the dude that plays fucking Harry Kim got the really shit treatment in Voyager as well from the showrunner.
Yeah, Garrett Wang fucking hates Rick Berman.
Well, Berman sounds like a wanker, but that's a discussion. Sorry, for another day.
Oh yeah, like I've heard quotes from many staff. Marina Sirtis is not
The lassie,
a fan of his.
the actress who played Dax. I can never remember her name.
Terry Farrell.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Wanker.
but yeah, Garrett. It's like I think Garrett Wang said something to the effect of like, I think he might be the worst person I've ever met.
Yeah. And Garrett seems like a really chill fucking guy. Like, holy shit. Because he wanted to direct an episode and he just kept getting told no by
Pretty much.
Berman. It's like, oh my god, that guy's such a dick.
He's the only cast member who asked to direct an episode who got told no, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, like, and he was just like, oh yeah, I just wanted to try it and get another credit because I was a young actor at the time.
Yeah.
Just
which
wow,
is what, which is what a lot of them were doing, like just get their name on it, and sometimes they go on and do more, sometimes not, but they got to give it a shot, and you might as well in a thing like that where I guess like an episode of a TV show where because I know that when guest directors come on for TV shows, it's less of like a big artistic vision they can have because the crew already knows their shit. They know how the show should look. Mm-hmm. They can sort of like, for want of a better term, kind of autopilot a lot of elements of it. So it's quite a safe place for someone to learn directing if there's an experienced crew there.
For sure.
From my understanding of it, anyway, of this kind of show at least, because it was, it was what it was, and it was a fairly formulaic kind of thing, like, 90s Star Trek, for how it was shot anyway. But yeah, so the whole thing was not a fun thing for Walter Koenig. Like I say, he's kind of grateful of the experience now because it was his first writing credit, so he doesn't hate it so much. But yeah, his statement about the episode is it was okay.
I get the impression it was just a very frustrating experience all around for the guy.
Yeah. And that's about it for fun facts. There aren't actually many fun facts about it, and it wasn't a fun fact; it was a depressing fact.
Yeah.
But yeah, do you have any thoughts about this episode?
I think it's emblematic of what the animated series is. It was a kid's version of Star Trek, and it's a bit of fun. Don't take it too seriously,
Yeah, I it's one of those things where it's like it's not a show that I like go back and watch. Like
no.
Outside of
this isn't a show for like the lore hounds of Star Trek. It's like it's just a bit of fun.
Yeah, but
and
it's like
we can have that.
Yeah, I enjoyed watching. I enjoyed watching through the whole series when I did, and like, like it's not terrible, but it's just silly fluff, and it's it's a bit more lighthearted. Like they tend to end on a bit more on a goof. I know that the original series did quite often as well. I mean, not the last episode we did where it just ends on a very depressing note, but. But it was kind of just a bit more of a silly thing, and it was just more Star Trek, I guess. And they were free to do a lot of things that they couldn't do in the main series because budget constraints. It was hard to make an alien landscape with an alien city. It had to be like a basic matte painting.
Yeah, which is matte paintings I will always love, and I will always comment on when I see them. I love matte paintings, but there's something you can only do so much.
There's a limitation for like how much like superimposing of things was possible at the time.
Yeah. Also, I will always prefer matte paintings over like big blue screen backdrops. I'm just saying, there's something about them.
There is something very
that
fun.
Asshole.
And it's like, yeah, that's cool. It's fun to watch, and it is interesting how there are little bits and pieces of it because the animated series has always existed in a very nebulous place canonically. It kind of was canon, and then for years it was stated to not be canon. Like Roddenberry wasn't happy with like a lot of it being canon, but lots of things from it have been made canon.
Yep.
Like I can never remember the name of it, but there's like a big predator thing that Spock had as a pet growing up. and that originally comes from an episode of the animated series.
Does it? Because that also came up in the original series.
The specifics of his childhood, like
Oh, right, okay, because I remember the teddy bear had come up because, like, McCoy's trying to give him shit for it, and then Spock
I think
comments
it's
and
actually,
it has, like, foot-long fucking fangs.
That's a fair point, yeah. But it's to do with, like, the context of it.
Yeah.
And, like, how it works. Like, a lot of his childhood, because it's all based around, like, an episode of the animated series. There's a lot of stuff like that comes up from time to time. Like, it's heavily referenced in Discovery. A bunch of stuff from the animated series.
Which is very interesting, honestly. Of all things to go and reference, it would be the animated series, but there you go.
Well, it was series 2 where they had people on staff who'd watched Star Trek.
Fair.
The first half of season 1 of Discovery is just continuity is where it goes to die. You just have to treat it like its own thing, and when you do, you can have some fun with it.
Yeah, and we're not. I think this has been stated before when it comes to, because Star Trek's a big thing for the two of us for whatever godforsaken reason. We're not people that are like, this is the lore, this is the continuity. I did want to smack my desk there, but I didn't. Just so you know, just imagine I'm hammering my desk at every point there. This is how the technology looked at this era. It's like, stop, just don't worry about it that much. It's not worth it.
Yeah, but it is interesting that, like, there are certain bits from the animated series, because basically from my understanding of it is that when it was on Gene Roddenberry's watch, basically when the movies came back, when the original cast came back for the movies and then TNG started, he basically would not allow anything that made anything from the animated series canon to appear. Like, he just didn't want it to be canon. But once he left, writers kept sneaking little elements in, just names of places, names of things.
A little bit of rebellion, you know?
Yeah, they kept sneaking in. There's a bunch of it in DS9 as well.
Actually, I was going to check very quickly on Ye Olde Memory Alpha about the Philosians and see if they ever get mentioned again.
I don't know, actually.
Because I like the idea of them.
Yeah, kind of plant beings. Like, it's one of those things. There's a lot of concepts that Star Trek isn't really able to go into, and it's kind of TV incarnations just for the scope of it, and because it would be too complicated to do. It's something that, especially if they tried it back in the day, can you imagine what the costumes in the original series would have looked like? They'd have looked like they were from Doctor Who.
I was literally going to say they'd look like was it the Sea Devil from Doctor Who or something like that? They get mentioned again in the animated series because they appear again in the animated series, but that's it. Which is kind of a shame.
Well, that's the thing. Presumably then neither the Ret Laws probably don't get mentioned either.
No. Or Caniclius.
Thank fucking God.
Or Big Spock.
How fucking good would it be? How fucking good would it be if they did a new thing, like maybe in Picard, and like the next series they go and they encounter Big Spock, like he's like, oh, I'm like Spock like 8 by now, but like yeah, I'm Big Spock, it's fine. That would be fantastic. But yeah, this is a fun enough episode. If you're interested in watching the animated series, give it a shot. It's on Netflix. I know it's on.
Which is something I never thought we'd ever see. Just the animated series still being a thing.
Well, the weird thing, despite like how Roddenberry being very precious about what he considers canon.
I don't even mean that. I just mean like it was a sort of cheap animated series.
But like
it's like the Ewoks cartoon being put on Netflix.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like in the modern day, like with Star Trek, it's always just been this is all Star Trek. Like they don't even the bits that like most people try and like forget. They still reference all the time. They still bring it up. And yeah, they're like fine with just putting it out there. Which I think is really cool. Something which I wish would be done a bit more with the like Star Wars ephemera, that they don't put up the Droids cartoon, the Ewoks cartoon, the Ewoks movies, even the holiday special. Like, just
Well,
put it out there. Just put it out there, because even if it's shit, it exists.
It should be preserved for history.
Yeah, and especially like
on the
given
plus side though, Webb, we are going to get the holiday special again, but in Lego.
Yeah, they should just. On Disney's part, I don't understand why they've got the rights to all these movies. I don't know why they don't just put them up. Like it functionally doesn't cost them anything.
That's an interesting point.
Because like what like that's the thing. I don't like when I understand like if you yourself have to host something and you have to host a video file, that's a lot of money. But when you're already hosting,
when you're a $1 billion company,
so much. Like, I've been watching through fucking Gargoyles recently. If you've got, like, 80 episodes of fucking Gargoyles...
Well, there's another fucking TNG, like, connection. Fucking hell.
Oh, I watched an episode of it the other day where the 3 antagonists of the episode were Jonathan Frakes, Marina Sirtis, and Michael Dorn.
Good.
It's great. But like, if you've got all those episodes up, just throw up these other things. Like,
yeah.
I unless like the original, like the actual files and all that have been lost, like
that could be the issue, I guess. Maybe I don't know.
But you can just say they're not canon. You can just put that if your like precious fucking like continuity is worth that. But you put fucking Return of Skywalker on your service, so you don't get to say shit about continuity. Rise of Skywalker, fucking whatever. I don't give that movie the dignity of remembering its name.
Yeah, but Palpatine has to tend to his farm of Snokes. With his little straw hat on.
Oh my god, that's why Snoke is big. We figured it out.
Palpatine is Caniclius. Oh no.
The Infinite Vulcan was the piece we were missing to why Rise of Skywalker was a bit shit.
Oh no, I can see the conspiracy board with all the string already. Oh fuck.
Oh, that's it. This is and that means Star Wars gets
Sorry guys, the podcast is getting rebranded to this shit now.
So yeah. So we've established that Palpatine is Caniclius. And that's how that works. Or at the
Which means that Spock might become either a Sith Order, or Big Spock might become a Sith Order or Jedi at some point.
Maybe Spock and Snoke, begin with an S and end with a K sound.
Or Spock is the reason that the Jedi Code is all about lack of emotions because he's a fucking Vulcan. It all makes sense now.
It all makes sense. He got sent back through a time warp at some point, and that's what happened a long time ago. See, it all makes sense, and that's why.
That's why you listen to this kind of podcast. We have the truth. We know the truth.
We have finally established why Snoke was big, and why there was a bunch of clones of him for reasons.
God, fuck that movie.
Like, I don't... it's one of those things I don't like to dwell on too much, because, like, people dwelt on not liking The Last Jedi so much that, like...
That it became sort of weird.
Like, to this day, like, we over on the main channel...
I saw comments on your bat rep.
We did a battle report for Warhammer, and in the background you can see our computer in a couple of shots, and our background just cycles through things, like, every 10 minutes. And one of the things that's in that cycle is a Last Jedi wallpaper. Mm-hmm. And, like, a few people were like, oh, like, unsubscribed for that. Like, they're joking, but, like, please, for the love of God, stop making disliking that one movie a personality. It's...
Yeah. Also, how much attention are you paying to that fucking screen to realise it's a Last Jedi wallpaper? Just saying, guys. Just saying. Yeah. You should be ashamed of yourselves, you fucking arseholes.
Like, just let it go. Just let it go. It's fine.
Let it go. Like, what The Last Jedi was about was Luke and realising that failure's okay. Anyway.
I'll jokingly, like, make a thing about, like, Rise of Skywalker, because it's thing. But I don't actually care. It's like, it was disappointing.
It's a fucking movie property owned by a corporation.
Yeah. That's all it is.
Yeah. Much like all intellectual properties nowadays. It's just one of those things.
And hey, it's not like it's the first bad Star Wars movie, so whatever.
No.
But anyway, any final closing thoughts? before we tangent as ridiculously bad as we did last time?
I am. Good fun. Not turn your brain off sort of entertainment a little bit. Fuck the Miranda class. I think that's it.
Your anti-Miranda agenda will not stand.
I know. I just do it to annoy you now.
This is
I don't even
upsetting.
hate the Miranda that much, but the Oberth is superior, even if it doesn't make sense.
I do not like the Oberth class.
Fuck you. The Oberth is great because it's so weird.
It's
It
weird.
is very weird.
How do you
get
from one hull to the other?
Don't think about it. Honestly, don't think about it.
I've heard people legit suggest that they transport. Like,
Oh, fuck off. No, if you really want to have it make sense, it's just there's a fucking turbo lift in like one of the weird pylon sections or something.
It's too thin.
I know it's too thin. I'm not saying that my explanation's good. I'm just saying that's probably what it was meant to be.
It's a bit like how if you work out how wide the neck is on a Constitution class, it's like 4 feet wide.
Yeah.
Don't think about it.
Yeah, basically, nerds that think too much on the dimensions of things ruin it for themselves.
Oh yeah, don't think about stories, think about what they mean, think about what they are alluding to.
Mm-hmm.
Try not to think too hard about them as a functional universe, because all you'll do is get annoyed.
This goes for any fucking universe you can think of.
But anyway, yes, I agree with that. Apart from your horrendous Miranda class lies,
I was hoping I'd snuck that in far enough back that you'd forget and then say I agree with everything you said, and then I could hold it up on your head that you said Miranda classes suck. But never mind.
No,
Damn it.
No, I'm not going to do that. So, would you like to let the people at home know where they can find you on the internet?
You can find me at Longfang91 on Twitter and twitch.tv/Longfang91, where at the moment I am trying to stream a lot because holy shit, I'm skint at the moment. And we're doing a Halo-themed XCOM run. XCOM, which, just as a little link back to Star Trek, has a lot of fucking voice talent from Star Trek The Next Generation in it.
Just like gargoyles.
Exactly.
And you can find me at Wibdoes Tweets on Twitter, on Wibdoes Stuff on YouTube, and the Snipe and Wib Play channel, which has just reached 8 years old, and that is terrifying.
It's okay, man. It's okay.
And to the point that I still call it Snipe and Wib Play, even though we've not gone by that branding for literally
It's just Snipe and
years.
Wib. Also, you have a Twitch channel.
Yes, we have Twitch. We also stream on Snipe and Wib.
Yep.
That's the thing.
Every Thursday and Saturday.
Yep.
I'll shell for you, motherfucker.
Yeah, well, I don't stream on a Thursday. I stream on Saturday. You actually stream on a Thursday.
Yeah, I stream with Snipe on Thursday.
Yeah. You see, I know at some point there's going to be enough people listening to this who will not have arrived through the medium of the Snipe and Wib channel. So I feel like it's a good habit to get into, to not treat it as if everyone already knows what it is.
Yeah. Most people will tune out by now anyway. So if you're still here and listening to this, thank you first of all, you crazy motherfucker. But yeah,
yes. If you are here right now, I love you. Mwah.
You are special to us. Thank you. Mwah.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Wasn't awkward or anything.